Antarctica and Thanet? Sounds impossible, right? But Shackleton's 1914 expedition has a surprising link to our very own corner of Kent. From daring survival to local heroes, this story will make you see Thanet like never before. Stick around with Thanet Spark, because the journey from Margate to the South Pole is about to begin. Ernest Henry Shackleton, the Irish-British explorer whose name still echoes with heroism and leadership. In the early 1900s, Shackleton was part of several bold missions to the frozen South. He even joined Captain Scott on the Discovery expedition, though that attempt to conquer the pole failed. But Shackleton wasn't finished. When Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen claimed the South Pole in 1911, Shackleton set his sights on something even more daring: to cross the entire Antarctic continent, on foot, via the pole itself. Shackleton knew his next mission would test even the toughest men alive. So how do you recruit a crew for a journey where the odds of survival are slim? According to legend, he placed his ad in the newspaper. Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honour and recognition in case of success. Imagine reading that over breakfast. No promises of riches, no glory guaranteed, just brutal honesty and the faint hope of recognition. And yet, hundreds of men are said to have applied, because for some, the chance to follow Shackleton into the unknown was worth more than comfort, or even safety. This was the birth of the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition, 1914. The ship, the Endurance. The plan, a 1,800-mile march across the most hostile environment on Earth. But fate had other plans. The Endurance was trapped in pack ice, crushed and abandoned. Shackleton and his crew were left stranded hundreds of miles from safety. What followed wasn't just an expedition, it was one of the greatest survival stories ever told. Shackleton leading his men across drifting ice, treacherous seas and frozen wilderness, and against all odds, he brought every single man home alive. So, what could possibly link this epic Antarctic drama with our very own Thanet? Well, believe it or not, there are two surprising links. The first is through a remarkable local figure, someone whose name still echoes around the Thanet community today, Dame Janet Stancomb Wills. Dame Janet wasn't just the first female mayor of Ramsgate, she was also a generous benefactor, funding maternity wards, nursing homes and schools, a true force for good in the community. But here's where it gets really interesting. She was also a close friend and patron of Sir Ernest Shackleton himself. Shackleton would often visit her at Eastcourt, her grand home on Ramsgate seafront, and it's here we can imagine that conversations about his bold plans for Antarctic exploration took place. And more than just talk. Dame Janet provided significant funding for his 1914 Trans-Antarctic expedition. Without her support, the legendary journey of the Endurance might never have left the dock. One of the 3 lifeboats, the very vessels that would eventually save him and his entire crew, was named the Stancomb Wills. Shackleton even wrote of Dame Janet as the woman whose generosity enabled me to equip the Endurance efficiently. And his thanks didn't stop there. During the expedition, Shackleton discovered a vast seaward projection of ice in the eastern Weddell Sea. His choice of name? The Stancomb Wills Glacier Tongue. So from the icy lifeboats that carried men to safety to a mighty glacier still on the map today, Dame Janet's legacy reached far beyond Ramsgate, stretching all the way to Antarctica itself. But there's actually another fascinating link between Shackleton's 1914 expedition and Thanet. After months of preparation, Shackleton and his crew finally set sail from Millwall Dock in East London on the 1st of August. But this was no ordinary summer. Europe was on edge. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand had set the world on a collision course with war, and Shackleton wasn't sure whether he should continue or turn back. The Endurance spent a night in Southend before moving on to Margate, where they moored and waited anxiously for the news. Finally, Shackleton decided to act. In his own words, "I immediately went on board and mustered all hands, and told them that I proposed to send a telegram to the Admiralty, offering the ship, stores, and, if they agreed, our own services to the country in the event of war breaking out. All hands immediately agreed, and I sent off a telegram in which everything was placed at the disposal of the Admiralty. We only asked that, in the event of declaration of war, the expedition might be considered as a single unit so as to preserve its homogeneity. So, right here in Margate, Shackleton and his crew stood at a crossroads, poised between Antarctic adventure and the outbreak of the First World War. So how did the Admiralty respond to Shackleton's offer? The message came from none other than Winston Churchill, then First Lord of the Admiralty. His reply was short but powerful. Just one word: proceed. That single command gave Shackleton the green light. Britain had just declared war on Germany, but Churchill decided Shackleton's Antarctic expedition was too valuable to call off. So, from the harbour at Margate, Shackleton and his crew pressed on, not to the trenches of Europe, but towards one of the most extraordinary survival stories ever told. If you enjoyed this little trip through time, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps keep us going. And if there's another Thanet landmark you'd love us to dig into, drop it in the comments below. We're always up for uncovering more local history. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Thanet Spark.